You may believe that to be strong is to conquer every negative thought, to forcefully paste a smile over every fear. I tell you now, this is a profound error, a violence you commit upon your own soul. The world preaches a gospel of forced positivity, a tyranny of good vibes only, and calls it strength. But true strength, the kind that moves mountains of consciousness, never forces anything. It does not fight the darkness with a clenched fist. It knows a secret. What if your anger, your sorrow, your deepest fear is not your enemy to be banished? What if, in your very attempt to force them away, you are rejecting the doorway to a peace the mind cannot comprehend? Stay with this, for we are about to uncover why the strongest presence does not battle the storm, but becomes the utterly silent, unmovable space in its very center. This is where your true freedom begins. Consider, then, the first cornerstone of this understanding. True strength reveals itself not as an act of willful imposition, but as a profound state of receptivity. We have been taught that to be strong is to push forward, to grit our teeth against the tide of life, to muster a brighter thought and shove the darker one aside. This, we are told, is resilience. But this is merely the ego wearing a mask of control, a subtle and exhausting form of violence against our own experience. It is the self trying to command the waves of feeling from the shore, shouting orders into a storm it did not create and cannot command. In our daily lives, this plays out in ways so common we scarcely notice the immense strain they require. A difficult emotion erases, a surge of grief from a memory, a sharp pang of professional envy, a cold seep of anxiety about tomorrow. Immediately, the programmed machinery of the mind kicks into action. We scramble to fix it. We try to think happy thoughts. We list our gratitudes mechanically, not from a spontaneous welling of joy, but as a tactical maneuver to suppress an unwanted guest. We may even shame ourselves for the feeling's very existence. I shouldn't feel this way. I have so much to be thankful for. This inner civil war, this constant management of our internal weather, is what we have mistaken for strength. It is a fortress we build, yes, but we are both the jailer and the jailed within its walls. What if the door to a different kind of power lies in the opposite direction? Not in building the wall higher, but in lowering the drawbridge. Receptivity is the courage to lower that drawbridge. It does not mean wallowing in or becoming the emotion. It means ceasing to declare war upon it. You see this in the natural world. A deeply rooted tree does not force the wind to stop. It receives the gale, allows it to pass through its branches, knowing its strength is in its rooted yielding, not in a futile attempt to become immovable stone. The tree is silent, present, and allows the atmosphere to be as it is. Transpose this to a moment of personal crisis. A stinging criticism lands at work, and the immediate reaction is a hot flush of defensiveness, a compulsion to retaliate or to inwardly crumble. The forced positivity approach would be to instantly affirm, I am successful and loved, burying the sting under a blanket of words. But the sting is still there, festering, because it was met with resistance. The receptive approach, the truly strong approach, is far more radical. It is to pause, and in that pause, to simply allow the sting to be there. To feel the heat in the chest without immediately following the story the mind wants to tell about it. You do not justify the criticism, nor do you argue with it. You simply make space for the sensation of being stung. You observe it impersonally, as you might observe a sudden clap of thunder. This is not passivity. It is the most active form of inner courage, for it dispenses with the familiar crutches of reaction and meets the experience raw and unadorned. In that space of allowance, a miracle of consciousness occurs. The emotion, no longer energized by your resistance, no longer fed by your mental narrative of right or wrong, begins to lose its solidity. It moves. It changes. It may rise peak and begin to dissipate because you have given it the one thing it sought, acknowledgement without judgment. You have not been its puppet, you have been its witness. And in that witnessing, you are no longer in the pain, you are the aware space in which the pain is occurring. This is the critical shift. Your identity moves from being the actor and reactor on the stage to being the silent, boundless theater itself. This receptive strength is what allows for authentic response, not compulsive reaction. From the cleared space of having allowed the feeling, a genuine intuition may arise. Perhaps it is a quiet insight that the criticism held a grain of truth you can now consider without self-flagellation. Perhaps it is a calm knowing that the criticism says more about the other person and can be released. But the action, if any is needed, now comes from clarity, not from the cloudy turbulence of suppressed emotion. This is how you navigate a difficult conversation with a loved one, not by forcing calm, but by first allowing your own inner agitation to settle of its own accord. This is how you face financial fear, not by chanting abundance while your gut is knotted, but by sitting silently with the knot until it reveals itself as sensation, not prophecy. The strength was never in the forcing of a new state. It was in the courageous, open reception of the present state, which then lawfully reveals its next form. The peace you sought through battle arrives of its own accord when the battle ceases. Now, we must examine this common doctrine with great clarity, for it has become the unquestioned mantra of our age. It presents itself as a beacon of light, yet in its shadow lies a subtle and pervasive tyranny. This is the enforced regime of so-called positive thinking. It is not the natural welling of joy from within. It is a mental dictatorship that commands you to exile any feeling that does not wear a smile. It is a demand born of fear that you police your own inner landscape, banishing the citizens of sorrow, anger, or doubt, and posting in their place the hollow sentinels of pre-approved affirmations. This is not freedom. It is a spiritual autocracy you impose upon yourself, and it exacts a heavy toll. You see it everywhere, this tyranny. On social media, it is the curated perfection, the implicit law that only the good, the bright, the successful is worthy of being seen. In the workplace, It is the pressure to be perpetually on, a team player radiating nothing but do enthusiasm, while inner exhaustion or dissent is swallowed whole. Among friends, it can be the well-meaning but crushing advice to just be positive when you share a genuine struggle, a command that instantly invalidates your authentic experience and shuts down the sacred space of real communion. This cultural edict creates a profound and lonely schism within the individual. You feel one thing, a deep sadness, a righteous anger, a creeping anxiety, and immediately a second voice condemns you for feeling it. You are not only carrying the original burden, but you now carry the additional weight of guilt and failure for having it. You are at war with your own being. Consider the common experience of loss. The heart, in its natural wisdom, wishes to grieve. It wishes to feel the full, crushing weight of absence, to honor what was loved through the very ache of its passing. But the tyrant of positivity intervenes. Don't dwell on it, it commands. Think of the good times. They're in a better place. Be strong. And so the authentic, cleansing process of grief is short-circuited. The tears are choked back. The longing is buried under a mound of spiritual platitudes, and the individual is left stranded, their sorrow driven underground, where it will fester and morph, perhaps into a chronic numbness or a bitterness that seems to have no source. The demand for positivity has not healed the wound. It has simply refused to acknowledge it, and an unacknowledged wound cannot close. Or take the simple daily irritation. You are cut off in traffic, and a flash of anger arises. Immediately, the inner police force sounds the alarm. Good vibes only. Let it go. Don't let them ruin your peace. So you paste on a smile, you force a deep breath. You try to think a loving thought about the stranger who endangered you. But the anger, because it was met with denial and resistance, does not vanish. It is stored. It becomes a tiny drop of tension in the shoulder, a slight sharpness in your tone with your family later, a low-grade psychic residue that clouds your inner atmosphere. You have obeyed the tyrant, but you have paid for that obedience with a fragment of your own vitality. This tyranny is so insidious because it wears the disguise of enlightenment. It masquerades as the path. But I tell you, any path that requires you to disown a part of your experience is a path of division, not of wholeness. It is a denial of the full spectrum of what it means to be a human being alive in this world. The sun does not deny the cloud, it allows it to pass. The ocean does not refuse the storm, it contains it, moves with it, and remains itself. The true teaching is not to replace what you deem negative with what you label positive. That is mere mental barter, a superficial game of images. The true teaching is to discover that within you which is prior to both, which can witness the storm of anger and the sunshine of joy without being fundamentally altered by either. When you cease the civil war, when you lay down the arms of judgment against your own feelings, you withdraw the energy that feeds the tyrant. The silence that follows is not positive, it is potent. It is the ground from which all genuine feeling, untamed, unpoliced, and blessedly real, can finally arise and be known for what it is, a passing weather in the vast and unshakable sky of your own awareness. This brings us to the heart of the matter, to the very alchemy of experience. If we are not to battle our feelings, nor to exile them under the tyranny of a false smile, what then? We must learn the secret art of unresisted feeling. This is not indulgence. It is not a license to be swept away by the emotional current. It is a profound and disciplined practice of allowance that, paradoxically, is the only true way through. Imagine you hold a vial of murky, turbulent water, shaken and clouded with sediment. Your natural impulse is to try to force it to be clear. You might try to filter it frantically, or pour it into another container, hoping to leave the sediment behind, but all such effort only agitates it further. The real secret is to stop, to become utterly still, to place the vial on the table of your awareness and simply let it be. In that perfect, patient non-interference, the law of gravity takes over. The sediment, no longer churned by your resistance, begins to settle of its own accord. The water clarifies not because you forced it to, but because you ceased all forcing. This is the alchemy. The transformation occurs not by your hand, but by your stillness. Now, translate this to a moment of searing jealousy. A colleague receives the promotion you desired. The familiar, bitter cocktail of feelings surges. The heat of unfairness, the cold splash of inadequacy, the acidic tang of resentment. The old pattern screams for action. It wants you to spin stories of favoritism, to diminish their achievement, to plunge into frantic strategizing for your own advancement. The tyranny of positivity, meanwhile, would have you immediately paste on a grin and offer hollow congratulations while repeating, "I am abundant," like a spell against the inner fire. Both are forms of resistance. Both agitate the vial. The alchemical practice is to do something that feels, at first, almost impossibly counterintuitive. You step back. You feel the physical clench in the stomach. You notice the racing, self-justifying narrative of the mind. But you make no move to follow it, nor to silence it. You simply allow the entire storm to be present. You say inwardly, "Yes, this is what jealousy feels like in the body. This is the story the mind is telling." You do not judge it as bad or wrong. You do not claim it as your identity. You grant it space to exist, as you would grant space to a crying child, not by becoming the cries, but by being the quiet, stable presence that holds them. This is not weakness. It is the greatest spiritual fortitude. In that space of conscious allowance, something inevitable begins to occur. The feeling, fully admitted and fully felt, starts to move. The tight knot in the solar plexus may pulse, then soften. The frantic mind, lacking the fuel of your engagement, begins to quiet. The story loses its compelling grip. You are no longer in the jealousy. You are aware of the jealousy. And in that shift of identity, from the emotion itself to the awareness of the emotion, a crack of light appears. Perhaps from this clearer space, you see a truth that your desire was not for the title, but for the recognition. Or you feel a genuine, unforced respect for your colleague's skill, or you receive a quiet nudge to have a different kind of conversation with your supervisor. But these insights are not manufactured. They are revealed. They are the sediment settling, revealing the clear water of intuitive knowing beneath. This practice is for the raw, unvarnished moments of life. It is for the wave of panic that hits in the doctor's waiting room. Instead of fighting it with forced mantras of health, you sit and feel the cold dread in your limbs, the shallow breath, and you let it be there without buying into its catastrophic predictions. The panic, fully allowed, often crests and recedes like a wave on the shore, leaving you present and oddly calm. It is for the simmering resentment toward a partner over a repeated, minor annoyance. Instead of either snapping or swallowing it with a forced, "It's fine," you pause. You feel the irritation as pure sensation without attaching it to the story of their flaw. In that pause, you might find the clarity to speak from a place of calm observation rather than from accumulated blame. This is the alchemy. By surrendering the fight, you gain a victory the mind cannot conceive. By yielding to the feeling, you are not overcome by it. You are liberated from its tyranny. The heavy, leaden emotion, when met with the open space of acceptance, undergoes a transmutation. Its energy is not destroyed. It is freed from the story that bound it, and it returns to you as presence, as attentiveness, as a quiet power that needs no name. You discover that peace was not on the other side of the battle with your feeling. It was waiting, patient and whole, at the very center of it, revealed the moment you stopped trying to look elsewhere. Now, we come to the practical ground of this entire revolution in consciousness. Where does one stand to witness this alchemy without being swept away by it? We must locate that inner citadel, that sanctuary of silence which is not of your making, but of your very being. This is not a place you go to, but a presence you are. Once the clamor of reaction subsides, when you cease to either chase a positive state or flee a negative one, what remains? Not a vacuum, not a blank emptiness, but a living, potent quietude. This silence is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of a profound, listening awareness. It is the space in the room, not the objects cluttering it. It is the sky, not the weather that passes through it. Your power, your unshakable strength resides in identifying with the sky like silence, not with the ever-changing storms and sunshine of thought and emotion. Think of a moment of profound overwhelm. The demands of work, family, and life seem to converge into a deafening roar. The mind is a cacophony of to-do lists, worries, and imagined failures. The conventional solution is to try to outshout the noise, to plan more frantically, to seek distraction, to force a sense of control. But this only adds another layer of sound to the din. The practice is to turn nubs inward, not toward more thought, but toward the source of listening itself. In the midst of the mental turmoil, you ask, silently, to whom is this chaos appearing? Who is aware of this panic? Do not seek an answer in words. Simply pose the question and listen, not with your ears, but with your entire being. In that turning of attention, a subtle shift occurs. You may notice a fleeting instant where you are not caught in the thought, but are simply aware that you are thinking. That instant, however brief, is the doorway. It is the first conscious breath of the inner sanctuary. This sanctuary is not reserved for the mountaintop or the meditation cushion. It is to be found in the traffic jam, in the grocery store line, in the tense silence after a harsh word. It is found by withdrawing your identification from the commentary and anchoring it in the witness. For example, you are about to enter a difficult meeting. The body is tense, the mind rehearsing arguments and defenses. This is the critical moment. Instead of fueling the rehearsal, you pause for just 3 breaths. But in that pause, you do not focus on the breath to escape the fear. You use the breath as an anchor to feel the fear from a place of stillness. You feel the pounding heart, but you are the aware space, feeling the heart. You notice the fearful thoughts, but you are the aware space, noticing the thoughts. You have not entered the meeting yet, but you have changed the entire inner landscape. You have come from the sanctuary, and you carry its atmosphere with you. Or consider a moment of sharp, personal criticism from someone you respect. The initial sting is visceral. A hot flash of shame, a cold contraction of defense. The old self wants to either lash out or crumble inward. But if, in that very instant, you can remember the sanctuary, you do something extraordinary, you become silent inside. You do not mentally argue. You do not even formulate a response. You simply listen to their words and to the reaction those words trigger within you. You listen from the sky like awareness. And from that silent, listening presence, something remarkable happens. You may find that the criticism, no longer met with your ego's brittle resistance, loses its power to define you. It becomes mere data, which you can then evaluate from clarity, not from hurt. Perhaps there is a truth to be humbly received. Perhaps there is a projection to be compassionately discerned. But the response, when it comes, will not be a reaction. It will be an expression of that inner silence. And it will carry a weight and a grace that no rehearsed defense ever could. The beauty of this inner sanctuary is that it is not something you build through effort. It is something you uncover by the cessation of effort. Every time you step back from the mental fray, every time you allow a feeling without becoming it, you are clearing the clutter from the doorway. You are not creating peace. You are ceasing to disturb the peace that eternally is. This silence is not yours personally. It is the very substance of awareness itself, impersonal and ever present. The frantic mind, the troubled heart are like drawings made on its surface. They come and go. The silent awareness remains untouched. To abide there is to know a strength that does not require force, a positivity that does not deny negativity, and a peace that passes all understanding because it does not depend on circumstance. It is the still point in the turning world, and it is your true home. This silent, aware presence we have been speaking of, it is not a tool you use. It is not a state you achieve for a moment of calm before returning to the old identity. To believe it is a tool is to miss the entire revelation. This is the final cornerstone. The most radical shift of all true power is revealed not as something you abdo, but as something you IRA. It is identity itself. All the previous steps, receptivity, releasing the tyranny, allowing the feeling, resting in the sanctuary, are not ends in themselves. They are the necessary preparations, the clearing away of the debris that has obscured the living truth of your being. When the debris of reaction and resistance is stilled, what remains is not a better version of you. It is the timeless, unchanging essence that was there before the first thought of I arose, and will be there after the last thought fades. Your strength is in abiding as that. Think of the ocean. On the surface, there are waves. Some are gentle and pleasing, others are towering and terrifying. A wave might think, I am a great and powerful wave, or I am a weak and insignificant ripple. It might try to force itself to be a different kind of wave. But this is a fleeting identity, dependent on the wind and the weather. It's true, enduring identity is not as a wave, but as the ocean itself, the vast, deep, silent fullness that holds the waves, that is the waves, yet is infinitely more than any single expression. Your thoughts and emotions are the surface waves. Your true identity is the oceanic depth of pure awareness. The strong person is not the one trying to manage the waves perfectly. It is the one who has realized they are the ocean. From this knowing, action proceeds, but it is not the frantic action of the wave trying to control the storm. It is the lawful, powerful movement of the whole. Let us see this in the fire of daily conflict. You are in a heated disagreement. The surface waves, anger, defensiveness, the need to be right, are crashing violently. If you identify as those waves, you are lost in the storm. Your actions will be reactions, and they will escalate the conflict. But if, in a moment of grace, you remember your depth, something changes. You do not necessarily stop speaking, but the words now come from a different place. You can feel the heat of emotion, but it is felt within you, not as you. You are the space in which the argument is happening. From that identity, you might speak a truth that disarms, not because it is clever, but because it is free from the venom of personal offense. You might find the capacity to truly listen because your sense of self is no longer under threat. The action, the speaking, the listening, flows from the identity as awareness, not from the identity as a wounded ego. The outcome may change, or it may not, but you will not be fractured by it. Or consider the experience of failure. A project you poured yourself into collapses. The waves of shame, regret, and self-recrimination are immense. If you are identified with these waves, you become them. You are a failure. You are worthless in this regard. This identity is agonizing and paralyzing. But if you can, even for a moment, sink beneath the turbulent surface into the silent depth of your being, you encounter a different truth. Here, you are the awareness that is witnessing the concept of failure. You are the space that holds the pain of regret. This awareness is itself untouched by success or failure. It is the neutral, loving ground of all experience. From this identity, a miraculous resilience emerges. You are not a broken thing trying to glue itself back together. You are wholeness itself, experiencing a passing cloud of sorrow. Action from this place is not desperate compensation. It is creative, intelligent, and free, because it is not trying to prove or redeem a small, damaged self. This is the ultimate freedom. You are no longer trying to become strong, positive, or peaceful. You are realizing you are the source from which these qualities, in their genuine form, spontaneously arise. You stop managing a persona and start inhabiting a presence. The man who knows he is the ocean does not fear the storm. He contains it. He allows its fury, knowing it cannot disturb his deepest nature. He may take practical steps to navigate it. This is the intelligence of life expressing itself. But he does so from an unshakable center. Your work, your relationships, your most private moments all become the theater where this one great truth is lived. You are not the actor playing a part, susceptible to every cheer and boo from the crowd. You are the very light by which the entire play is seen, silent, immovable, and forever free. This is not a philosophy to believe. It is an identity to awaken to, here and now, in the midst of the life you are already living. This final point is the bridge between that transcendent knowing and the muddy, glorious reality of our daily footsteps. It is the art of living from the ocean while the waves still dance upon its surface. This is the practice of impersonal observation. It is not a cold, clinical detachment. It is the most intimate and loving form of engagement, for it allows everything to be exactly as it is, without the filter of your personal story, your history, your fears, or your desires coloring its reality. When you observe impersonally, you are not a person looking at a thing. You are awareness itself, aware of a phenomenon. In that space, the world ceases to be a series of personal affronts or validations and becomes a pure, flowing expression of life to be witnessed, appreciated, and sometimes acted upon with a clarity that feels nothing short of miraculous. Think of a moment of intense physical pain, perhaps a sudden, sharp headache. The personal reaction is immediate. My head hurts. Why is this happening to me? I can't focus. I need this to stop. The my and the me claim ownership of the sensation, weaving a story of victimhood and urgency around it. The pain is not just a sensation, it is an enemy invading your territory. Now, shift into impersonal observation. You withdraw the claim of ownership. You no longer say, my headache. Instead, you simply note, there is a sensation of throbbing pressure in the region of the head. You observe it with the same curious attention you might give to a complex sound or a pattern of light on the wall. You feel its texture, its rhythm, its borders. In doing so, something profound relaxes. The secondary suffering, the mental rebellion against the pain, the fear, the story, begins to dissolve. The raw sensation remains, but it is no longer yours. It is simply a happening within the vast field of awareness. And often, when the frantic resistance ceases, the sensation itself changes, moves, or becomes far more manageable. You have not overcome the pain. You have ceased to be its personal battlefield. Now, bring this to a far more charged arena, a conflict with someone you love. They say something that, through the lens of your personal history, feels like a deep betrayal. The personal observation is a whirlwind. They always do this. They don't respect me. After all I've done for them. This is a story woven from the threads of your past hurts and future fears. It is a prison of your own making. Impersonal observation asks you to lay those threads aside, if only for a moment you listen to their words, not as arrows aimed at you, but as sounds emerging from their own constellation of pain and confusion. You observe your own reactive feelings, not as ultimate truths, but as passing storms in your inner atmosphere. You might say to yourself, there is a rising sensation of heat. There is a thought pattern of betrayal. There is a voice speaking words laden with emotion. By framing it this way, you create a sacred space between the stimulus and your response. You are no longer a puppet jerked by the strings of personal history. From this clear space, a response may arise that addresses the actual moment, not the ghost of every past grievance. It might be a question born of genuine curiosity, not accusation. It might be a silence that allows more truth to emerge. This is how impersonal observation becomes the engine of real compassion and intelligent action. This practice turns every mundane moment into a field of awakening. You are stuck in traffic. Personal observation. This is ruining my day. I'm going to be late. This always happens to me. Impersonal observation. There is a slowing of vehicles. There is a feeling of impatience in the body. There is a thought, story about lateness. The difference is not semantic, it is existential. In the latter, you are free. The traffic jam is what it is. The impatience is allowed to be. But you are not imprisoned by either. You are the open sky in which the traffic jam and the impatience both appear and eventually pass. To live this way is to walk through the world lightly. Praise comes, and you observe the pleasant flush, the uplifting thought, without cementing it into a larger statue of your own grandeur. Criticism comes, and you observe the sting, the contraction, without constructing a fortress of defensiveness around it. You begin to see that all of it, the pleasure and the pain, the success and the failure, is simply the content of life appearing in consciousness. Your identification is no longer with the content, but with the conscious space itself. This is the ultimate strength, for it means nothing in the world of form can truly destabilize you. You engage fully, you care deeply, you act decisively, but you do so from the unassailable, knowing that you are not the role you are playing, nor the emotion you are feeling, nor the outcome you are witnessing. You are the silent, impersonal witness for whom all of this drama unfolds, loving, boundless, and forever free. This is the practice, the moment by moment return to source that makes the lofty truth a living, breathing reality.